I'm Brad Carter. I'm a just chief pilot actually with the Owlshead Transportation Museum here in Owlshead, Maine. So,
And the airplane you're standing in front of is a
1930 Pitcairn PA-7S. It is the 1930 PA-7S. There's only one.
and you fly this airplane
Yes.
in air shows or air events?
Air events. Yes, I fly it in air events. I've flown it 4 times, so that makes me an expert, right?
Well, you're almost an ace.
Yeah.
So, talk about performance. How fast does it go?
I don't know how fast it will go. I was seeing 140 in level flight on downwind.
Now, have you flown it outside of the local area here at all?
No, I have not.
Just around the pattern, basically.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay. And I see it has covered wheels,
It does.
And
That
it-
helps it go faster.
and it has.
The speed ring is normally on it. That's on the ground over there. They're working on the valve cover gaskets right now.
So, now this airplane was owned by a Pitcairn.
By Steve Pitcairn, yes. And he donated it to the museum.
Oh, that was nice of him.
Yeah.
Wonder how many hours it has on it.
Don't know. We are at the Owlshead Transportation Museum in Owlshead, Maine, Knox County Airport, just outside Rockland.
And so the Air Museum or Transportation Museum?
Transportation Museum.
Transportation Museum. And you have, what is in this place?
Well, I think we have about 16 flying airplanes and a few static display, and somewhere around 40 moving automobiles.
And you're open all year round?
We are open all year round, easy to find online at ohtm.org.
And you do air shows?
We do one major air show a year in August, and we do several. They're called air events. We're struggling to come up with a correct term for that because there's guidance on how to behave as an entity at an air show versus an air event.
Ah, I see. So now, in the past, we've talked about different airplanes here, made videos about them. We've talked about the DR-1, the Standard, and the Jenny.
Yeah.
And now we're talking about a real hot rod of a bi-wing airplane. What is this airplane?
This 7S in the world.
The only one.
The only one. I think they made 4 or 6, and I know of one other registration number. I know the guy who owns that registration number, and basically it's a number.
Now it's called a Pitcairn, and that's an unusual name. Who was Pitcairn?
Well, this one was owned by Steve Pitcairn, and I believe he was the grandson, and I want to say it was Harold was the first name of the original
That's right.
Pitcairn involved in aviation. He was involved with the family business with PPG, which does a lot of paints and that kind of stuff for automotive and airplanes too, I suppose. So they had that business, and Harold decided he wanted to get into aviation. He did get into aviation. I think he started Colonial Airways. I'm not completely sure of that.
Eastern. He started Eastern Airlines. It became Eastern Airlines.
Okay.
Apparently. Yeah.
And yeah, so he was involved in airlines, was involved in aircraft design, ultimately ended up actually being more famous for the autogyro
Right.
than these planes. But he was looking for a good airplane for mail routes. You want fast, you want reliable, and you want the ability to haul stuff over a range of like 500 miles. And he got all of that with these airplanes. This was not the standard mail carrier. This was the sport version, and it is a sporty airplane.
So now what is it? Now it does have capacity to carry mail though.
It has the ability to carry that much weight. This part here is a covered over front seat right now. In the sport version, it was a seat.
Okay. And now the airplane was made what year, do you know?
No, I don't.
Probably 28 or 29, but towards the end of the
Yeah.
run, I think.
Yeah.
So the too bad you don't have an auto gyro. That was.
Yeah, you go see Andrew King flies a Pitcairn autogyro.
Oh really? Where's
Yeah.
he?
Down in Virginia, I think Culpeper.
I was just reading about him the other year. I looked up Pitcairn, and I
Yeah.
looked up Amelia Earhart, and she flew them all over the country.
The autogyros?
Yeah, well, she took one to 18,400 feet or something like that for a record. Yeah, can you imagine that?
No. Do you know Johnny? Oh boy, he passed away a few years ago, but he was 102 years old. Johnny Miller, and he flew. If you ever watched the video of the Pitcairn autogyro leaving the roof of the post office, I think in New York, and flying towards the airport,
Right.
that was Johnny Miller.
Oh, wow.
And he was doing it in the 20s, and he taught himself to fly in a Jenny that had been left in his field by a barnstormer. And anyway, Johnny's gyro was being built. His first auto gyro was being built, and Amelia Earhart, being Amelia Earhart, got in front of him to get it, and flew it for about 45 minutes, destroying it. And he never forgave her for it.
Yeah,
So,
they said she crashed it. She crashed two of them,
yeah.
and somebody else bought it for her, as I recall. But she flew it all over the country, because that was the way you made money in those days as an author. We should pop from town to town.
Right.
And there was one story about, she landed someplace in a field and she needed some gas, and the kid goes and gets gas for her, and when she leaves and disappears over the horizon, he goes, Amelia Earhart. I just met Amelia Earhart. So tell us about this airplane, which is different than most of them. I notice it's got a steerable tail wheel.
It's got a steerable tail wheel. It actually has pretty good manners on the ground. There is a lot different about it than most airplanes, and you won't, I bet, be able to look down and see these rudder pedals. But if your camera has a light on it, you can give it a shot. You see you got 4 pedals down there.
Oh, wow.
It looks like 2 sets of rudders.
Yeah.
The inner ones are the brakes, the outer ones are the normal rudders. And you taxi with your feet on the inner ones, and when you take off, you really want to move your feet to the outer ones. So that's different from everything else I ever flew.
How much engine torque does it have?
Not terrible. It's a nice behaving airplane, I think, on takeoff. You don't see much from here. It's straight ahead for a little while. But,
What's the takeoff speed?
I don't know, probably 65 or 70. I've flown it now 4 times, so that makes
Highly
me an expert.
experienced.
Yeah, so I've flown it 4 times. Landing, I'm coming in at 80 to 85, somewhere in there, over the fence, and then it just sorts itself out.
And this has a normal carburetor and all that. It's not like you're fooling around with, like the SOP with PUP with the mixture and all that other business.
No,
so much.
no, it's very normal that way. It has a spark advance on this that's wired forward. I don't know what the purpose of it was or when they decided they didn't need it, but it's wired forward and locked.
And I see something about it up and down. Is that the trim?
That is the trim, that crank there with a chain.
Oh, okay.
And a chain guard.
Okay.
And the fuel tank is set up with, it says it has a main tank and a reserve tank, and really it's just the length of the straw that's drawing the fuel.
Oh.
So when the main runs out, you've got a longer straw and you can get a little more.
How much gas do you put in it to fly it around the pattern here?
About 30 gallons. We'll try and keep 30 gallons in it. It's a weird gas gauge. I don't know if you can see it, but it reads empty. It's over on the right, just above the...
Cool.
It is fun to fly. Level flight doing 140 miles an hour in a biplane is very unusual.
So was this one extra used for very much? I mean, I see this, it was rebuilt, but do you know what kind of condition it is? Did you ever see pictures of the prior pictures?
No, I never did.
Do you fly with the cowling on or off?
I've never flown it with the cowling off, but I believe we're going to be, from here out, we put in thicker gaskets on the valve covers, and we don't think the cowling's going to fit.
It's that tight?
It's that tight.
That sounds like a Howard Hughes deal.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, that was his idea with the H1 Racer, was to have the super tight cowling.
Yeah.
And he said he thought Focke-Wulf.
So this is a replica Newport 28, and its livery is for the 95th Pursuit Squadron and the first flight of the 95th. And so the bucking mule is that squadron. First flight is the cowling, the diamond. And then this is number 0, and that's attributed to being Sumner Sewell's airplane. I always liked that he flew with a 0. It just kind of like a no-value target. Go find somebody else to shoot at. But anyway, this is who we've modeled it after. And then,
Where was it built?
When was this one built?
Where was it built?
This was built by Swanson, the replica. And I don't know where. I think he was in New York. I'm not sure of that.
Yeah. We have a real one.
A Newport 28?
Yeah, real Newport 28.
Yeah.
And it has a hat and ring squadron on it.
Yeah, that's a 94th.
Yeah.
They were together. They were based together. The 94th and 95th were on the same fields throughout the war.
Where did Sumner School live?
Sumner Sewell was from Bath, Maine, and grew up there. Went to, I think, Bowdoin. But World War I was different than every other war, where all the college kids thought it was the thing to do was to go fight that war.
Right.
So they all picked up, made up squadrons or training, and off they went.
Yeah, that movie Flyboys shows that pretty well.
Yeah. Yeah.
We used to sell that in the museum and it play it all the time, but then somebody complained because somebody got shot.
Yeah.
So they pulled it.
Well, we have, I don't know if you can see it over there. Those crosses came off a plane Sumner Sewell shot down.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, he had a pretty good career. He was, I think he had 8. I'm not sure. Oh, he was an ace.
He was an
more
ace.
than 5, less than 10. And his last actually capture was with 3 or 4 other pilots, and I think your Dusty Rhodes was one of them. There was a Fokker D-7 that landed on the field the day before the war ended, and they walked out with a handgun and took him prisoner. And so we have a piece of that fabric too. That plane is now in the Smithsonian Museum. That's their D-7.
That's the only one.
And huh?
That's the only one left.
I don't know.
That's what they said in the museum.
I believe you.
Yeah.
So anyway, when they recovered it, they sold the pieces of the fabric and little picture frames, and we have that, and the 5 pilots credited with capturing the airplane while on their home field. So
Nice capture.
yeah.
Come on and have a drink, Wolfgang.
Yeah, but come on over here and I'll show
Okay.
you this is more